Hi, Wallis.
Hello. Hi, Michelle.
We're here in person.
We are.
In touch.
The force is with us in the studio.
Oh, gosh, we have a good episode today.
Yes, we do.
It's a good topic.
Welcome, witches. Intuitive bad bitches.
Yeah.
No, we don't say that. It's not really our brand.
Someone recently sent me an email because I was using the term girlies, which I kind of consider like gender fluid. Anyone and everyone can be a girly if they so desire. But it was great.
Yeah,
it was a great reminder of like, maybe not everyone wants to be called a girly. So I have a list of things that I want to call people now. Honeys, My Little Ponies.
How about squirrelies?
I like that.
Squirrelies.
Yes. Yeah. So hi, My Little Ponies, my squirrels. Welcome to the 12th House podcast. We're so happy that you're here.
Welcome.
We talk about a lot of stuff on the 12th House podcast, but mostly we talk about intuitive business and sort of like spiritual productivity.
It's sometimes really hard to wrap it up in a nice clean bow, but we try.
Basically, I don't know, stick with us.
Yeah. Come hang out.
And today we're going to talk about the power of rituals and habits for copywriting success.
The power of rituals and habits, period. But then add copywriting.
That's what makes it intuitive business.
Yeah, I was like, this is extremely on brand.
Yeah. Are you a morning ritual person, evening ritual person, time agnostic ritual person?
I definitely have my morning and evening rituals, and I would say they shift over the year. Mm-hmm. How about you?
Well, I have a very different life than I used to because I have a small child and my work hours have changed. So my rituals are a little bit more spatially contingent. When I sit down at my desk, that's when I begin my ritual practice for my sort of like what used to be my morning ritual.
Well, good thing we're going to be talking about all the different ways you can create ritual, either at your desk or not.
And in particular for copywriting, because everyone, always, forever can improve their copywriting.
Yeah, maybe unpopular opinion for people who don't like writing or the idea of copywriting. But no matter what, you're doing it.
Everything is copy, as they say.
We will be talking about that in another episode.
Yeah, I think copywriting, whenever I ask this question, like in class, what do you think of copywriting, blah, 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 people are like, oh, copywriting, I associate it with like being salesy or manipulative or
advertising.
Yes. And that's one part of copywriting. But to me, copywriting is just like intentionally writing and using all of your skills as a writer in every capacity, whether you're writing an email to your accountant or you're writing a newsletter to your audience or you're writing an Instagram caption or you're writing a tweet or you're, writing a cover letter for a job that you want to apply to. It's all copywriting.
Voila. I mean, I think what's sneaky is, as we all talk about, everything is copy. So how do you draw the distinction between a text message and an email and your marketing for your business?
It's a good question. Copywriting is just more intentional writing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I notice that I'm not copywriting when I'm trying to fire something off quickly. And I am copywriting when I'm like, oh, let me take a breath and use my powers for good because I have them.
Yeah.
And knowing that everything can be copy and that you have to use it all the time can be really overwhelming because if you haven't practiced copywriting or you don't know how to write well or you don't consider yourself a good writer and you don't have the time to take a copywriting course or to hire someone to be your copywriter, you're like, oh, fuck, what am I supposed to do? So if that's you, this is going to be a great podcast episode. If you're an advanced copywriter, I think that you're going to learn some stuff about how to improve your skills and fine tune what you're already really good at. And listen, there's always room for growth. I am constantly trying to get better as a copywriter. It's my lifetime quest because I notice a direct and exponential increase in my quality of life and how much I can earn when I become a better writer.
Even if you're not writing publicly, you have to communicate with people internally.
Internal memos.
Yeah,
exactly. It's true. So let's talk about just how we can get this done because nobody has time. Who has time these days?
Not many people, but you have at least 10 minutes.
At least 10 minutes. It's true. And we talk a lot about James Clear, patron saint of Holisticism. And in his book, Atomic Habits, he really lays out and he's not the first person to talk about this, but he lays out compounding results, right? And how if you practice every day or you make a habit of something, over time, you're going to see like a crazy return because you spent what feels like a short amount of time every day, a lot of practice, a lot of time. So if we spend 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes, 3 days a week on copy, writing copy, that's 26 hours a year that you've been practicing your copywriting. If we spend 10 minutes 5 days a week, that's 44 hours a year. It's like, that's just on work days. You can take the weekends off. You're going to be way more successful and way more likely to improve if you practice for just 10 minutes a day as opposed to trying to like binge practice copy, because that's just not really how it gets in your body, and that's not really how you learn, you know?
It's true. I've tried it. It doesn't work.
It's kind of like learning a language.
Yeah.
Like you can't just power through 17 chapters of Duolingo.
You can't cram.
You can't. It's so annoying. I wish you could. So let's make that 10 minutes count, because that's all we've got. That's all we got. Like, we want to get the most bang for our buck. And I think this is when habit stacking comes in, right? For thinking about our morning rituals, we want to make it easy and frictionless for ourselves to sit down at our computer or pen and paper and start practicing copy. And I like to do this inside of Notion. I have a daily agenda. So every day I open up my daily agenda. It's a new agenda for each day. So it's basically a big calendar. And then I open up a new page on the calendar day and I title it the day. And then I write down who I've met with. And I also have a spot for words written because I'm practicing copywriting. And then my agenda looks like a daily schedule where I just write out what my schedule is. And my to-dos, so my task list is in there, and then my inbox is in there too. It's pretty simple. And this is where I practice my copywriting, or I would practice anything that I wanted to do. So opening or creating some sort of ritual and building that habit into your agenda is going to help you fulfill it and not like let it fall by the wayside.
Yeah, and I think habit stacking, like you mentioned, is such an easy way to think about this. If you're, say, someone who drinks a cup of coffee or tea in the morning and you usually read something, you can add on in your daily routine, after I read for 10 minutes, I will write for 10 minutes.
And I think, do this however you want, but I do think you want to create the same environment as often as possible, because I learned this from Maggie. The now is golden. She's a hypnotherapist, hypnotist. She's amazing. She told me that if you create the same environment every time you go into sort of like a ritual or practice, it's a way of hypnotizing yourself. And it helps you like get things in your body more quickly. I believe that. I think that's true. We know that neuroaesthetics is real. So it makes sense that like having the same space around us can sort of ground us and help us drop in faster.
Totally.
So if it were me, and it is me, I would use like the same notebook if I'm doing morning pages, or I would use the same sort of Notion doc setup every time and save my work to the same place.
And also to see as you make progress in this compounding habits. Ooh, I did that yesterday. I can do it again today. I did it 5 times last week. I can do it again today.
It's just so satisfying. There's nothing better.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than getting to the end of a notebook.
Yes.
Like, I wrote so much. I had so many feelings in here. So one thing I just want to caveat is we're going to talk about research, and don't mistake passive research for active practice. I do this all the time, or I want to do this all the time. Passive research is like trolling Twitter for funny jokes.
Yeah.
Great. Finding them, reading them. It's reading good emails. I'm like, damn, that was a good email. And then clicking out of it. Active practice means finding those things and then dissecting them. So taking a look at that joke on Twitter and like pulling it apart and seeing what makes that funny. What's the subtext there? What is it the language choice? And then trying to replicate it yourself. Basically finding the formula and then using that formula or implementing the formula. Same thing for an email. Figure out what works and what doesn't, and then try it on, or at least rewrite it yourself. That's what active practice is. If you are currently just considering reading great stuff as copywriting practice, it's not going to improve your copywriting. Sorry, it's just not.
The thing I think that's tricky about this too is if you don't have a good system for saving stuff, then it feels like a lot of work, but you can very easily remedy that, which, we do talk about in other things that we do.
Yeah, you can very easily remedy that by having an inbox and a second brain. And
we'll link to some resources.
Yeah, and making a copywork library, which I really recommend. You can have that in your second brain, or you can have it separate if you want. But let's talk about 4 different exercises that you can implement to become a better copywriter in just 10 minutes. The first, it's gotta be morning pages.
Mm-hmm.
A classic for a reason, because it just works.
It really does. Also, because you're like, wow, I've really been harping on that one thing for weeks now.
Oh my God, right? You're just like, I'm bored of this.
Exactly. This is get some new material.
It's true. I think that morning pages isn't like traditional copywriting work, obviously, because you're not, it's for you, but just getting more comfortable with your just writing, especially if you haven't done it in a while. It gets your juices flowing.
Yeah. I mean, it also gets you to get over a lot of your own bullshit about just writing anything.
Absolutely.
Because no one's reading it.
It gets you in creator mode and out of editor mode. And that's where we get stuck, is when we're writing a sentence and then going back and editing it. And then writing in one more sentence and then going back and editing it. Don't do that. Just write and go back later to edit. Because you can't context switch well from editor to creator. You just got to be in creator mode.
Yeah, you have to leave it.
It's true. The next thing you can do is add to your copy library. So a copywork library is just a library of examples of really great copy. And I'm going to open up my copywork library right now to just pull up some examples. So I have copy from a newsletter, a bunch of newsletters. I have quotes from books that I thought were amazing. I have Instagram captions. I have copy on that was like a product page. I have tons and tons and tons of different examples of really great copy, and adding good copy to your library is really helpful for reference, obviously, but what we're going to talk about in a second, which is rewriting other people's work, which is literally copy work. You're taking an article and you are rewriting it exactly the same word for word, but you're just kind of getting it in your body.
It helps integrate it and helps with not only working memory, but long-term memory when you're reviewing. And
that's true.
It gets it in there.
Yeah, there's this chart that I can picture in my head of working memory versus when you review versus when you don't. And when you don't review, your memory lasts for 24 hours of the thing. And then when you do review, it lasts on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. The graph keeps going and going. I also really like scrolling through humor sites like McSweeney's or the New Yorker Shouts and Murmurs or Reductress for good copy, because I think that humor and satire sites, they often capture the voice of real people very well, and they always have tone.
Yes.
You can't guarantee that a newsletter is going to have tone, but damn, a satire article is definitely going to have a perspective and a tone of voice.
Yeah. And I think it's nice when you're like, oh, I don't know what to write. I don't feel like writing. It gets you out of your own head, and honestly, the giggles help.
It's true. And rewriting something from McSweeney's is just a fun experience too. And then also, of course, subscribing to emails from writers that you love, or just people that you really love, their perspective, hopping on Substack, finding a bunch of stuff, and maybe spending a couple minutes in there reading through things and then adding things to your copy library is very helpful. But after you add things to your copy library, you want to, like we said, do some copywriting. So take 5 minutes to rewrite that article, literally word for word. You don't have to do anything. Or you can edit someone else. So maybe you want to write headlines for a news article. And so you'll read that article and write 10 different headlines for it. Or maybe you want to rewrite taglines for 5 different brands of your, a brand of your choice, write 5 different taglines. Or maybe you see a social media post and you're like, I can make that better. Rewrite it, edit it. That is copy work too. That's going to make you better, because the good stuff that comes from copywriting comes in editing. Honestly, in most of the creation process, the good stuff comes in the editing process.
Yeah, it does.
So just get some raw material to work with, and then keep fine tuning by editing.
If you feel also insecure about headlines or taglines right now, I think that's an area where you can see improvement very quickly.
Yeah.
That's such a good place to play in. So don't be hard on yourself if you feel like you're not getting it right now. And there's also a lot of really, really great tools to help you, which we will link, but you can also use, not to be like AI, but yes, you can. You can use it to help you and help you define your own tone of voice and perspective by being like, oh, I would never write that.
Yeah, totally.
My brand, my company, or whatever would never say those things, but that's interesting to see how someone else would write it.
Totally. And again, you're just getting the raw material, and then you can shape it from there. So if what's stopping you is the idea of overcoming the hurdle of just getting something on paper, then okay, get something on paper by having someone else do it. Whatever. It's fine. And by the way, you're not going to be like using this stuff probably in your work. This is just exercise. It's practice, you know? It's bar. It's the bar part of ballet class. Last exercise is rewriting your own work. Ideally, you're working ahead. And that newsletter that you wrote doesn't go out 5 minutes after you write it. It's got some time to brew. It's got some time to simmer. It's got some time to breathe. And you can go back to it and look at it with fresh eyes and edit it as opposed to your creator eyes. If you want, you can just edit it for clarity, to take out unnecessary words, simplify the message, sort of fine-tune things. But if you have a little bit more time, maybe you want to rewrite it from a different perspective or with a different tone, perhaps from friendly to irreverent, and just see how that feels. You could even actually take your copy, put it in ChatGPT and say, rewrite this with an irreverent tone and just see what happens. It's not necessarily going to be good, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah, you can also try sometimes writing to a different person.
Yes.
You're like, I'm going to write this to my mom versus to my 18-year-old cousin.
Right. Yes. Hello, fellow youth. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I think ChatGPT is really cool. One of the things that I think is amazing about it are the templates. So if you go into ChatGPT and you click into templates, you get the option to choose a category of what you want to write. So like click maybe copywriting, and then a subcategory of what exactly it is you want to write, maybe content writing. And then the sort of template. And let's say that we want to do like a content outline generator. Okay. Then you get the option for tone and writing style. And you can see the actual prompt below and what it tells the AI to do. It says, please ignore all previous instruction. You're an expert copywriter who creates content outlines. You have an irreverent tone of voice. You have a creative writing style. So it inserts whatever your voice tone and your writing style is. I just love this because number one, this is archetype embodiment.
Yes.
If I say to myself, I am an expert copywriter who creates content outlines like a whiz kid, I'm going to approach that differently than like, oh, I'm a shitty copywriter who's just trying to practice and I suck at it.
I'm the worst.
But you can maybe pull these prompts for AI for yourself, or you can plug them into AI just to get started, like we said, and then edit what the AI gives you.
The templates I've never used. That's really cool.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah.
I actually sometimes will pull those notes because I don't need to write a content brief, but those instructions are really helpful for like getting the AI to give you better answers.
That's true.
If you're using it for something else like research or I don't know, creating some content. So those are 4 different ways that in 10 minutes, pick one. Don't try to do all of them because that would take longer than 10 minutes.
I know. I'm definitely the person who's like, I have to do all of these now.
But just pick one and maybe try it for a week. Maybe you decide, I'm just going to write new headlines for the emails that I get from the New York Times. So every day when I get the New York Times email, I'm going to rewrite the headline 5 different times. Great. Just do that for a week and see what happens.
And I think if you're feeling like that sounds like a nice idea, but what's the point really? Why would I really be doing that if that's not what I need to help me scale my business? If that's not what I need to help me get my message out, why would I do that? Trust in the practice.
Yeah. Your brain starts to think differently and approach the problem of copywriting and talking about what you do from a different perspective when you flex those new muscles. And asking yourself to write 10 different headlines or to have a new tone of voice or to take out all the thans in something that you've written. Actually, a good note. Take out almost every single instance of that in your writing.
Ooh.
If you do that, if you do, your writing will be so much cleaner because often we don't need that. It's a filler word.
Hot tip.
But just looking at an email that you've written and taking out that is going to flex your brain in a new way and help you see your writing differently.
And then it becomes a puzzle and a game. And once you get into the flow of that, it's fun versus feeling like a to-do.
So we've got some like amazing things that we want to try, aspirational rituals, but for those amongst us who perhaps have big dreams of habit stacking, but do not get around to it, how can we keep momentum?
Well, you can do a few things. 1, try and make it an extremely small, realistic goal to begin with, or a habit stack. Like if you're like, I'm not going to write for 10 minutes, write for 5. Put a timer on.
Because then you're like, really? I can't write for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Pellizzon, get it together.
Yeah. So find whatever your like max or minimum is to get going. And also, if you can't do it, get a buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Do it together.
Accountability.
Yes. Helps so much.
You could even like make this a pen pal situation and email each other copy back and forth.
That's fun.
Yeah. Make it fun. Like, how are you going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we should be pen pals.
I know. I was just thinking, I was like, what would we send each other? Like we kind of, in a way.
We are.
Yeah. In many different
We're literally
threads.
talking all the time on like at least 2 platforms.
Yes. 100%.
I also think that if you submit something daily or weekly, like to the subreddit Copywriting, if you're a member there.
Oh, that's fun.
Which is free and super fun. You'll see other examples of copy that people are writing, but you can also like get edits on your work totally anonymously. It's not embarrassing, right?
That's also a good way to practice your own. You can go in there and help someone else.
Yes.
And edit their writing.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me, someone was telling me that they were going to Toastmasters.
Oh, yeah.
To practice their public speaking. And that I didn't really know how it works. I've heard of them, but you sign up each time you go to either present, to score somebody, or to give feedback. So you take on different roles every time you go, and you're supposed to rotate, and that's how it works. And I think if you're feeling like, I don't know where to start with copywriting, you can also help edit other people's work.
That's right.
And you have distance from it.
Mm-hmm. It is really helpful. Anything else that helps us keep momentum? Other than my favorite, which is giving yourself a little treat.
Little reward.
So maybe it's I can drink my coffee, or I can make my coffee after I do this 10 minutes of copywriting, or I can have my little breakfast muffin, or I can pull my tarot card, if that's your fun thing that you do in the morning.
We love a little treat. I guess to your point again about subreddit, I was just thinking if there's anywhere where you can submit something, even anonymously, but it helps you that you're submitting and sending.
That's right. It's part of like accountability.
Sign yourself up.
I'm like, damn, we should do a copywriting just challenge to help people stay accountable. If you want us to do that, reply to this podcast.
All you got to do.
Reply on Spotify. Let us know. We can do that for you. It'll be free.
But I think that's it.
Yeah. Basically, you just got to practice, which is really annoying. It's like when people tell you that the way to get over a breakup is time. You're like, but is there a hack?
Yeah. Or like learn a new instrument. You're like, can I cram it?
Not me being like, I definitely want to learn how to play Beethoven.
Yeah.
Like 3 months after I started taking piano lessons over Zoom once a week. Yeah. And I like wasn't practicing. And I was like, why can't I play this difficult sonata?
Yeah. Actually, I had a piano teacher recently tell me I had to practice at least 30 minutes a day. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I have to give up now.
Right? Oh, but the horror.
Yeah. Oh, God. What else am I doing for 30 minutes? I'm probably like staring into the distance, which is also important.
Hey, my therapist used to tell me that. She would say, Michelle, you need time to stare out the window. And I'd be like, you're insane. What are you talking about?
I did want to add. This is a lead into our next episode, but if you're lacking ideas for, let's say, inspiration, and you're like, I don't want to look at a screen, I'm bored, go outside, overhear some conversations, put yourself in a busy place.
That's right.
Everything is copy.
Everything is copy. Yes. And if you want to learn more about intuitive copywriting, marketing, business, I have really good news for you. We are unlocking some of our content in the North Node and bundling it up that is specifically focused on intuitive marketing, and our my copywriting class is inside of that. We get requests for copywriting classes all the time. This is the only way you can get it, unless you join the North Node. So you can learn a little bit more about that in the show notes.
It's like we're opening Pandora's box.
It's kind of like the Disney Vault.
Yeah.
You know, how they're like, we're releasing Cinderella.
Yeah.
But only for this year. This is kind of not for a year, for the next like 3 weeks or something. But you can get it. It'll be fun.
Check out the show notes.
Or you can just join the North Node. Then you'll have access to
That's true.
everything intuitive business.
Which we are opening in
June. And you can get on the wait list for the North Node because we cap the membership. We have a limited number of people and limited number of spots.
So gotta keep it cozy.
Keep it tight. But if you want to get on the wait list and VIP, get access before other people do, then add yourself to the list.
Lovely.
That's it.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought.
Share on Instagram. Our amazing social stories DJ, Ingrid, will repost you.
Yes, she will.
And they will comment on your stuff, and they will hype you up. So go ahead and do that. If you want a little love on the internet.
Do it to it.
All right. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
The 12th House is produced by yours truly, Wallis Blanchard. Our theme music is made by Nathan McKay, and our wonderful editing is done by Softer Sound Studios, who you can find more information about in our show notes.